In this video, we are going to go over several commands that help us edit, search, move, copy, or display contents of files. So the first command that we're going to talk about is nano. You could alternatively use Vim, which is another popular editing tool, or if you actually have the graphical user interface for Linux installed, you can download an application called gedit, and all of these allow us to edit certain files. So if I wanted to edit a file, I would just type in nano and the name of the file that I want to edit. The gedit command would do the same thing, but instead of allowing me to edit within the terminal, it would open up the actual text editor, similar to TextEdit on Mac or Notepad on PC. So what we're going to do is we're going to edit the passwords.lst file and include 5 bogus passwords by doing the following. We run nano passwords.lst, we add our 5 passwords, we do Control X to exit, and then type Y to save. So here we are back in our Linux machine. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and create a file called passwords.lst within our documents folder. So to do that, I'm going to just type in nano, and then we're going to do passwords.lst. So this is automatically going to open up a file if there is none that exists. Otherwise, it's going to edit the file. So let's go ahead and add 5 passwords. So we'll just do password, let me in, QWERTY up, 1 QAZ, 2 WSX, 3 EDC, and hello world. Now all these are insecure passwords and should not be used, but I just wanted to add 5 passwords here. So we'll hit Control X and then hit yes or Y and hit enter to save it. So now if I do ls, you can see now we have a file called passwords.lst. Before we continue with any other commands, we need to talk about wildcards. Wildcards make it much easier to copy, move, search, delete, depackage, etc. because we can just use specific characters to represent any number or certain character. So for example, if I put a star when I'm looking for like a file, it could look for any number of characters or 0 characters in the position of that star. If I put a question mark, it would only represent 1 character in that specific position. If I want to represent any character, I put that within brackets. So I could search for a character or a subset of characters by having those included within brackets. So to show you how this will work, well, you look at the find command. The find command basically allows us to locate files in a directory or subdirectory. If we use the D flag, it will only look for directories. So for example, if I want to search the current directory, which is the dot directory, for files with the LST file extension, I would say find, and then dot would mean look inside the current directory. We're going to look for any files with a name that includes anything, which is the star, with a file extension of .lst at the end. If I wanted to search the home directory for directories named forensics, I could say find, and then the home directory is represented by the tilde, so find tilde/documents. We're looking for a type of D, which means look for directories, with the name of forensics. So now back in the Kali Linux environment, I'm going to show you exactly how this works. So if I say find, look in the current directory for a file with the name of star.lst, it's going to pull up all the files with that. As you can see, it finds our passwords.lst file that we just created. If I go ahead and do the find tilde/documents, we do type D, and then the name of our folder, which is going to be commands. As you can see, there's our folder. Another search command that we can use is grep. What's different about grep compared to find is that grep will actually search for contents within the files. We can also add the -i flag to ignore case sensitivity. So for example, if I wanted to search for the word password inside our passwords.lst file, I would just say grep password and our passwords.lst. So we are now back in our Kali Linux environment. So let's go ahead and test this grep function. So we'll do grep password passwords.lst. And you can see that it shows up. I could do it again and search for another command. So for example, we'll just search for QWERTY because we know we have QWERTY up, and you can see that it finds just that specific portion that we're searching for. The next commands that we'll teach you is how to copy and move files. So to copy files, we use the cp command, and then we do cp for the actual file that we're going to copy, so filename.ext in this case, and then the path of where we are going to copy this file to. If you want to copy files and directories, you'll need to use the -r flag, And if you want to flag it to interact with it before overwriting existing files, you'll do the I flag, otherwise it may just overwrite those files. The move command is identical, mv, and then the file that we are going to move, and then the path where we're going to move that file to. The difference here is that cp has a new file name, whereas move just has the directory that we're going to move the file to. We have the same I flag that we're going to have to be able to ask if we want to overwrite files. And then we can also have a -b, which would allow us to back up the existing file before it is moved as well. So if I wanted to copy the passwords.lst into the forensics folder, I could do cp passwords.lst./forensics. Or if I wanted to move the passwords.lst into a new file called secrets.lst, I just do mv passwords.lst and then secrets.lst. So essentially all that's going to do is rename the passwords file. So here we are back in our Kali Linux environment. So we're going to go ahead and copy the passwords file by doing cp and then passwords.lst into, instead of the forensics folder, we have a commands folder. So we'll go ahead and copy it there. So now if I do ls commands, you'll notice that we also have the passwords.lst inside of this folder. To move the file, I can then do move and then passwords, use tab to autocomplete, and then just rename it to secrets.lst. So now if I do ls on the current directory, you'll notice that I no longer have the passwords.lst file. Instead, I have the secrets.lst file, which I just renamed it to. The next command that we're going to talk about is the echo command, which allows us to just add text to be displayed in the terminal or to a specific file. So for example, if I say echo hello world ! That's going to just display right into the terminal. If I wanted to show my name or Billy Blue Jay's name, I could do echo the name of Billy Blue Jay, and that would also show up in the terminal. Where this becomes more valuable is if you're trying to put contents inside of a file. Using the standard out operator, you can either overwrite the contents of a file or add to it. If you use the single right caret, it would overwrite the contents of an existing file with the contents that are on the left of the right caret. If you have a double right caret, it's going to concatenate, which means to add to the existing contents of the file without overwriting it. So for example, I could create a new file called scared.txt by just saying echo y was 6 afraid of 7 ? Right caret scared.txt. So if the file exists, it's just going to overwrite the contents of the scared.txt file. If it doesn't exist, it will go ahead and create it and put that text inside of it. If I wanted to add a response to this question, I could just do echo because 7, 8, 9. And then have the double right caret, and what that's going to do is concatenate that text to the end of the file. All right, here we are back in our Kali Linux environment. We're going to go ahead and echo this question into the scared.txt file. So I'm going to go ahead and hit enter. I'll open up the file with nano, and as you can see, the question is right there. So we'll then give our response of echo because 789 into the scared.txt file. Hit enter, and then we'll do our same nano command. And as you can see, it's added to that file. Now we'll cover the cat command, which basically allows us to see the contents of a file within the actual terminal rather than opening up the file using nano or vim. If you wanted to display multiple files, you could do that at the same time too. To do this, we just say cat and then the file or the files that we want to display the contents of. So for example, if I wanted to show the contents of the secrets.lst file that we created previously, I could just say cat secrets.lst. The next command and operator are the less and the pipe operator. The less command will allow us to page through the contents of a file. So if there's a lot of contents that we need to navigate through, rather than actually having to scroll all the way through, we could have the less command just display one page at a time. Here are some useful keyboard shortcuts that you can use as you navigate up and down through the less command when you actually execute it. The pipe operator will take the standard out and make it into a standard in of another process. So for example, if I wanted to show all the contents in the etc folder, I could use the ls, which shows all the files, L in long format, A, the hidden files of the etc folder. And then I could pipe in, which means we are going to have it use the standard in of another process, the less function, which would allow us to then add paging. So this would page through all the contents of the etc folder. This could be very beneficial with the grep command that we previously taught you. You could do ls of some directory and then grep for looking specifically for .txt somewhere within that directory. This would then find all the txt files within that directory. So here we are back in the Kali Linux environment, and I'm going to go ahead and cat the contents of the secure.txt file. I'll go ahead and hit enter, and there you can see all the contents of that file. Additionally, I'll go ahead and use the less and pipe operation with the etc directory. So I'll go ahead and hit enter, and you notice instead of just paging through immediately and showing all the files, it allows me to just go ahead and hit spacebar to page through all the contents of this entire directory. Once it reaches the end, as you can see here, I can go ahead and just type the letter Q and it will exit. Now I want to give you an opportunity to practice this by yourself. So open up a terminal, pause this video, and do the following, and then come back and compare your answers. All right, welcome back. Let's go over the answers to this learning activity. So the first thing that we're asked to do is change to the commands folder. So we'll do that by saying cd commands. The next thing we're asked is to copy the hi-by.txt file to by.txt. So we'll do cp hi and then just hit tab to autocomplete it, and then I'll just do by.txt. Then we're asked to rename the hi-by to hello.txt. So I'll do move hi-by.txt to hello.txt. Then we're asked to open up the file hello.txt and add hello world to this file. So I'll do nano hello.txt and I'll add hello world. I'll exit and save this file. Then we're asked to add by world to the by.txt file without opening it. So to do that, I'm just going to echo by world, use the double side caret to add it to the by.txt file. Then we are asked to show the contents of both these files, and I can do that using the cat function, cat hello, and then I'll do by and hit enter, and you'll notice that both the contents of those files are displayed inside of the terminal. Thanks for watching my video. Feel free to click the links here to watch the next video of the playlist, continue to the next playlist, or subscribe.